Have you ever noticed how some people can't go a single day without music? Headphones in on the train, playlists for every mood, concerts, vinyl collections, Spotify Wrapped shared like a badge of honor. But then others just don't. No playlists, no favorite artist, they'd rather sit in complete silence. And when you ask them what kind of music they like, they shrug and say, "I don't really listen to music." And that feels strange, doesn't it? Because we're told that music is universal, that it connects us, that everyone has a song that makes them feel something. But here's the question. Why? Why do some people genuinely not like music? Is it a brain thing, a trauma response? Or maybe something much deeper about how they experience the world? Stick with me until the end, because what you'll discover might not just explain them. It might explain you. For some people, the story starts with pain. Imagine this. You're young, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and your parents sign you up for piano lessons. You don't want to go. But every week, you're forced to sit on that bench, stumbling through scales while a teacher sighs in frustration. Or maybe it's worse. Maybe music was playing during the worst moment of your life. A breakup, a funeral, a fight. And now, every time you hear that song or even that genre, your body tenses up. Your chest gets tight. You feel something you can't name. Over time, the brain does something really clever. It protects you. Psychologists call this a conditioned emotional response. Your mind starts associating music not with joy or connection, but with pressure, pain, or loss. So you start avoiding it, not because you don't understand music, but because on some level, music reminds you of something you'd rather forget. And here's the thing, you might not even consciously remember why. Trauma doesn't always live in your memory. Sometimes it lives in your nervous system. So when someone asks, "Why don't you like music?" you can't explain it. You just know that silence feels safer. This isn't rare. Studies show that people who experience chronic stress, especially in childhood, often develop what's called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from things that most people enjoy. Music, food, socializing. It's not that they're broken, it's that their brain learned to shut down joy as a survival mechanism. Because if you don't expect good things, you can't be disappointed. If you don't let yourself feel, you can't get hurt. So for this group, not liking music isn't a preference, it's a scar. But then there's another group entirely. These are the people whose brains are just wired differently. And I don't mean that in a vague, metaphorical way. I mean literally, neurologically different. Let's talk about something called musical anhedonia. It's a real condition where the brain simply doesn't release dopamine in response to music. Most people hear a song they love and their brain lights up. Pleasure centers activate, they feel something. But for people with musical anhedonia, that doesn't happen. It's not that they hate music, it's that music feels neutral. Like watching paint dry, not offensive, just boring. And this affects about 3 to 5% of people. Which means millions of people around the world are walking around thinking, "What's the big deal?" while everyone else is crying to Adele or screaming lyrics at concerts. Then there's the overstimulated mind. People with ADHD, autism spectrum traits, or sensory processing sensitivity often describe music as overwhelming. Too many instruments, too many layers, too much input. While most brains filter sound into something enjoyable, theirs are trying to process every single frequency, every beat, every lyric all at once. It's exhausting. For them, music isn't relaxing, it's work, it's cognitive load. And when your brain is already juggling a million thoughts, the last thing you want is more noise. Silence, for them, isn't empty. It's a relief. These people aren't rejecting music out of trauma or fear. They're rejecting it because their brain says, "This is too much, I need space." And honestly, that's valid. We live in a world that never stops making noise. Ads, notifications, conversations, and background music in every store and elevator. For someone whose brain is already on overdrive, choosing silence isn't weird. It's self-care. And then there's the third group, the ones who genuinely, intentionally prefer silence, not because they're hurt, not because they're overwhelmed, but because they've found something richer in the quiet. Let me explain. There's a concept in psychology called inner directedness. It refers to people who don't rely on external stimulation to feel content. They don't need TV playing in the background. They don't need constant conversation. They don't need music to fill the space, because their inner world is already full. These are the people who think deeply, who daydream, who spend time in their own heads not out of loneliness but out of preference. Philosophers, writers, artists, introverts, they don't experience silence as emptiness. They experience it as clarity. Studies show that people who are comfortable with solitude and silence tend to have higher levels of self-awareness and emotional regulation. They don't need external validation or stimulation to feel alive. They've cultivated an inner life that's rich enough on its own, and here's what's fascinating. These people often describe music as a distraction, not from boredom, but from meaning. When they're thinking, creating, reflecting, music interrupts that flow. It pulls them out of their inner world and forces them into someone else's emotional narrative, and they'd rather stay in their own. This isn't coldness. It's not emotional numbness, it's actually a form of strength. Because in a culture that's obsessed with constant entertainment and distraction, choosing silence is almost rebellious. It says, I don't need you to curate my emotions. I'm comfortable with myself. And that kind of self-reliance, that's rare. Now, here's where it gets even deeper. We tend to treat people who don't like music like they're missing out, like there's something wrong with them. But what if we've got it backwards? Think about it. Music is powerful. It can manipulate your emotions in seconds. A minor chord and suddenly you're sad. A driving beat and you're energized. Film scores tell you how to feel before a character even speaks. Advertisers use music to make you want things. Algorithms curate playlists to keep you hooked. So maybe, just maybe, people who don't connect with music aren't broken. Maybe they're just immune to a form of emotional manipulation that the rest of us have accepted as normal. That's not to say music is bad. It's not. Music is beautiful. It's a connection. It's culture. It's healing for millions of people. But it's also not the only way to feel. And people who don't need it are no less human. They're just wired for a different kind of depth. There's a term in philosophy called negative capability. It was coined by the poet John Keats, and it refers to the ability to sit with uncertainty, mystery, and silence without needing to fill it with answers or noise. People who are comfortable without music often have this quality. They don't fear the quiet. They don't need constant input. They can just be, and in a world that's louder than ever, that's not a weakness. It's a superpower. So what does all this mean? If you're someone who doesn't like music, you're not alone, and you're not broken. Maybe you carry an old hurt that music reminds you of. Maybe your brain is protecting you in ways you don't fully understand yet, and that's okay. Healing doesn't have a timeline. You're allowed to avoid what doesn't feel safe. Maybe your brain is wired differently. Maybe music overloads you or just doesn't click the way it does for others. And that's okay too. You're not missing out. You're just experiencing the world through a different lens, or maybe you've simply found richness in silence. Maybe you've built an inner world so full that you don't need external noise to feel alive. And honestly, that's something to be proud of, because here's the truth. We're told that connection, joy, and meaning come from shared experiences, concerts, playlists, singing along, and for many people that's true, but connection can also be quiet, joy can also be still, and meaning doesn't always need a soundtrack. The real question isn't why don't you like music? The real question is, what have you found instead? Because silence isn't empty. It's full of whatever you choose to put in it. Thoughts, ideas, peace, presence, and for some people that's more than enough. So which one are you? Are you protecting yourself from something music brings up? Are you wired in a way that makes silence feel better than sound? Or have you simply found a kind of contentment that doesn't need a beat to keep time? There's no wrong answer, just your answer. And if this made you think differently about music or silence or the way your brain works, you'll love what we explore next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. We dive deep into the kind of psychology that actually explains you. See you there.